All right, welcome to TribPreps. We had a big Friday night of football, week 3. We were all out at games tonight, so we're here to talk about those, go over the score list. So what happened, we had some big games, some big outcomes, obviously. We'll start as we always do. I'm Todd Sommerfeld, sports editor, James Krause, and Andrew Tucker down here with us at games. Andrew over from Winona. As I said, we'll start with score list. In the MVC, first week conference games. Logan 21, Sparta 16. James was there, and he'll talk about that. Central 43-27 over Reedsburg. They had a kind of a slow start there for Central, but they picked it up. Christian Rudrud had 156 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, a touchdown throw. Gabe Service 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. Derek Pangier 4 catches, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. I was in Holman 34, Onalaska 20. Vikings had 390 rushing yards in that one. Jack Barth, 149 of them. Alex Burgett, 117 of them in a touchdown. Cam Cornett had 133 yards and 2 touchdowns for Onalaska. I skipped right over the stats for the Logan game. I'll throw it out there. Bradley Check, as you said, carried a ton. 35 times, 199 yards, 2 touchdowns. Maxim Roberts also got a touchdown for Logan. Cam McTaggart held to 13 yards, but he did get in the end zone. Final MVC game, Toma 26, Baraboo 23. Jackson Steffel, touchdown pass, touchdown run for the Timberwolves, who scored in the fourth quarter to win the game. On to the Cooley. Onalaska Luther beat GET and the great defense.
Yeah,
right.
GET has been able to hold teams defensively, but they have not scored enough to win.
Yep, 13-8 that game for the Knights. Both teams scored in the fourth quarter of that game, and Luther got the last touchdown to get the win. Ben Hansen scored the touchdown for the Red Hawks. Omar Jimenez had the conversion on that one. Jackson Kendall to Gabe Shepard for 27-yard touchdown for the winning score of that one. Kendall passed for 156, 2 touchdowns. GET had 126 total yards in that one. Westby 41, Black River Falls 20. Devin Brown 145 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Maddox Torkelson passed for 137 and 2 scores. The Norsemen had 392 yards in that one, and if the stats that were sent in are accurate, allowed Black River Falls 2 first downs.
Wow.
Another big night for Luke Baginski, although we don't know exactly what he did because nothing was sent in, but West Salem 35-7 over Viroqua. So Viroqua's hope at a 3-0 start out the window. Aquinas 55-22 over Arcadia. These guys were marveling at these numbers as I came in tonight. Jacob Thornton for the Blue Golds, 6 for 6, 238 yards and 4 touchdowns. Waylon Hargrove had 2 of those catches. Kyle White got 1. Declan Haas had 1. So a big win for the Blue Golds. We're back on track after losing to Columbus. Bangor 42-0 over Brookwood. Eli Tucker had 135 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Bryce Peterson, 107. He only carried 3 times. 2 touchdowns for him too. Hayden Mossman passed for 115 and 2 touchdowns. So Bangor is still throwing, they got shut out last week, but still throwing touchdown passes. Bangor had an edge, call it an edge, 415 to 151 total yards. Cashton 43-0 over Necedah. Jack Christensen 218 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Eagles. Dairyland, we just have scores. CFC 34-7 over Melmin. Blair Taylor 49-38 over Whitehall. Andrew can tell us more about the Mustangs and CFC shortly. DeSoto 40-0 over Waniwak Center Weston. All Coach Evwick said on this one, running clock in first half. 4 Pirates scored the 5 touchdowns for DeSoto on that one. Here's some impressive stuff. Prairie du Chien 47-15 over Richland Center. Abe Amundsen 13 for 20, 343 and 5 touchdowns. Blake Thierry 6 catches, 222 and 4 touchdowns. He also had a touchdown run. There's a reason he's going to Indiana. Then we'll move on to Minnesota. Cannon Falls 46-6 over La Crescent Hoka. Alex Von Arx had a 18-yard touchdown run for the Lancers in the fourth quarter of that one. Caledonia, second straight shutout, 27-0 over Dover Iota. Noah Schrader, 11 carries, 100 yards, 3 touchdowns. As I said, 2 straight shutouts for the Warriors. So there's our score list. Let's start with the big city game with Logan playing Sparta, 2-2-0 teams. James was at that one. Tell us how it all unfolded, other than Bradley Check just
getting the
running
ball
for 6 and 7 yards at a time.
every possible
Yeah.
moment. This was a game coming in that we had talked about based on what we saw in non-conference play. I thought this would be a really score-heavy game. I thought this had a chance to be sort of a track meet. Didn't turn out that way. 10-7 at halftime. Sparta had the lead on a field goal right before halftime. But at the same time, even with that lead, they never really felt like they were in control of the game. What changed and what put Logan in control for the rest of the game was in the second half, they just gave the ball to Bradley Check. And they said, run up the middle, and we can get 5 yards at a time at will. And it was really impressive because and I asked Adam Dow after, why can't you stop this? It's just how Logan plays football. They run downhill and they're going to run through you. And Bradley Check's the perfect person sort of for that role. By my count, I think 23 of those 35 carries were in the second half. I want to say maybe a few went to Maxim Roberts, including a touchdown that helped them get ahead. Really impressive stuff these first 3 games for Logan. First 3-0 start over since I think a decade ago. And Sparta, the issue they had was they couldn't run the ball like they had in recent weeks, so they had to throw a lot. And they had a few decent pass plays, but they couldn't get anything going really consistently. With how Check was running the ball and with how Logan was controlling the clock and controlling possession, Sparta didn't have really any chances in the second half. They got 1 touchdown from Cam Taggart, but they never really got a chance to get Logan off the field and take some good field position to try and get back into this game. It's as comfortable as you'll see a team on the sideline with 5 minutes to go in a 1-score game that I've seen because I think a lot of Logan guys were like, okay, if we give it to Bradley Check, he's going to get a few yards at a time, and if we avoid penalties and if we avoid putting ourselves behind schedule, we can run out the clock and Sparta doesn't have a chance. And that's ultimately what happened.
Okay. So big momentum for Logan starting the season here, 3-0, and getting a win. Sparta always starts with a couple of games that everybody would look at and say are easy. I think the difference, maybe not difference this year, but Sparta went out and dominated those games. So that's kind of why we thought this would end up being a good one, and ends up being a 5-point game and a win for the Rangers.
And an interesting point that Adam Dow made to me when we talked after the game is, obviously you don't want to start your conference schedule with a loss, but he didn't seem overly concerned with his team because like you mentioned, 5-point game, few plays go a different way and maybe they can win that game. But also because he thought there was a lot of parity this year, and you saw that with your game home in Alaska, and that's the Central team these first 3 weeks. The MVC feels very wide open right now.
Absolutely does. 1 week in for conference season. Andrew, you got to go out to Melrose for the first time.
Yeah, beautiful drive up when it was sunny, but a little bit of a hair-raising drive back in the dark. A little winding roads, but Melrose took the opening kick, fumbled their first offensive play. CFC recovered, scored a couple plays later, and it was sort of off to the races from there. CFC had a handful of turnovers in the first half, including 1 for a touchdown. CFC was up 34-0 at halftime, and then the guys were maybe a little distracted with the foot off the gas in the second half, and Melmin technically won the second half 7-0. But speaking of wide open, I mean the Dairyland Conference is going to be pretty wide open this year. I thought that Melrose had a chance to have that be a pretty close game, but CFC looked quite good. Pepinalma's going to be tough, but they graduated a lot of guys, so they're not quite as dominant as they have been the last couple of years. Blair Taylor got a pretty nice win,
49 points,
pretty quality win. So they're definitely in the conversation, for for that title, and you know, if Mel Min is able to upset one of those teams, you know, maybe they're, you know, in sort of the conversation for second place. So it's definitely a pretty wide open conference, but CFC definitely looked good and looked like they are at the very worst in the top class of that conference.
Okay. As I said, I was in Holman tonight, not completely knowing what to expect, with as good as Onalaska's been in recent years, and Holman kind of being that team on the fringe in recent years. There were higher expectations in Holman this year, and they came out and played a really good game, I thought. I thought you could look at just about any aspect and say the Vikings performed well. They moved the ball. They ran for 390 yards. Jack Barth had a really good game, 149, I think it was. And it was back and forth early, and Onalaska took its last lead at 14-10. Ian Cole hit Broden Steiner with a touchdown pass in the second quarter, first drive of the second quarter, to make it 14-10. And then the back and forth ended after it was John Faherty for Holman. Took a handoff and went 69 yards, just straight up the middle, made a cut, and ended up going the distance for 69 yards, like I said. 17-14 lead for Holman then, and they kind of built on it from there. Limited turnovers. They only fumbled one time and basically got the ball right back from Onalaska on a fumble on the next, I think it was next play or next possession. Next possession for sure, maybe the next play. Where that happened, so they dodged a bullet there. So kind of the only mistake. They played really well defensively, I thought. A lot of hard hits. They put pressure on Ian Cole, who I thought responded well. He didn't make mistakes out of it. Holman did get to him eventually, but they just kind of kept him under pressure. And I thought it was a good scenario for Holman because they were able to put the pressure on. And I thought it was a good scenario for Ian because he stood in there and took it and found places to take the ball. Not everything was caught, but he didn't make any bad throws. There was one, Holman had a shot at a pick six and didn't get it. But aside from that, I thought he was pretty solid. Cam Cornett, very solid, had a long touchdown run early to start the scoring on this one, I think a 64-yarder, where Holman was there to make the tackle and just couldn't do it. He kind of powered through it and finished the run. So I thought, like I said, very good game for Holman. When you talk MVC, as you were saying, we don't really know who's going to be there right now on top. But I thought this kind of established maybe Holman as one of those that you have to look at. We'll see what happens. Central obviously got things going tonight, scored 43 points. So that's good for them. We'll have to start looking at those matchups when they have. There's a big one next week, is Central and Alaska. So we'll see. And I'm not counting on Alaska out of anything yet. Just like Adam Dow's not counting himself out of anything yet. Alaska is going to get better. We know that. They have a track record. So let's see where it goes for next week. But for right now, Logan and Holman both look pretty good tonight.
Yeah.
We can leave it at that. So we'll be back with you next week. That takes care of it for now. We'll be back with you next week. You can read stories about all this stuff, lacrossetribune.com. James will be doing something on Logan. I'll be doing something on Holman. Andrew's got some, even though Mel Min only scored once.
Yep.
We got something.
Got some good photos. Got some
yeah,
good photo collections, stuff that'll be going up.
Yep, photos, videos, that kind of stuff. So lacrossetribune.com for that. And then we will see you again here next week after we talk about all these games for week 4. Thanks for joining us.